Hello, everyone. Welcome in. We're going to get started in a few moments as people continue to file in. So if you can wait 1 second, we'll get started soon. Hello to those who are just joining. We're going to get started in a few seconds. Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome to today's family support series. We're going to be talking all things move-in. We're going to get started with some introductions and then we'll jump right into the presentation. And then we will move into some question time. So we're going to begin with our family team introductions, starting with the lovely Camille.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Camille Clark. I'm the Associate Director of Family Programs, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Nelson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director of Family Programs.
And hello, everyone. My name is Grace Leitner. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Family Programs Intern at New Student Family Programs.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Williams. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Family Coordinator for Family Team.
Awesome. And then Erin, if you want to introduce yourself, and we can jump right into the presentation.
Yes, I'm Dr. Erin Brandt. I'm the Associate Director of Housing Operations with Housing and Residence Live. All right, I will share our presentation real quick. Just give me a second to get it pulled up and ready to go. All right. All right, so tonight, we'll be going through and reviewing primarily what you need to know for the move-in process whenever your student arrives on campus. We have been busily working throughout the summer to prepare our residence halls and make sure that we have everything in place for when your students arrive on campus on August 21st and 22nd for our new student move-in. So just a quick reminder about things that your students should be doing before they arrive on campus, making sure that they're submitting their immunization information. All of that does need to be submitted by Thursday, August 1st, which, believe it or not, is next week. All newly admitted students, they do need to submit the Mason immunization record form and any supporting immunization documents by close of business on the deadline. Students, there is a app that they can log into and they can view this information, kind of see their status and that sort of thing within that system. And I believe we're going to wait till the end to do any questions. The other thing that your student really needs to be working on right now is setting up their Mason Mobile ID. Their Mason Mobile ID will give them access to their residence hall, to their room. It's how they access to do laundry because we don't want them to come home with sneaky clothes. That's also how they get like any Mason money, their meal plan, anything along those lines. So they're going to need to be setting up their Mason Mobile ID before they come onto campus. If your student plans to use a physical ID, then they should plan to have that ready to go when they arrive for move-in. So tips for our incoming and returning students. One thing that we want to make sure students do is stick to their assigned move-in schedule. We work carefully to arrange that schedule to prevent any traffic backup and to really maximize the traffic flow throughout campus, both once you go into the check-in center and then also whenever you go to your unloading zone and go over to the residence hall for unloading. Making sure that students clearly label everything and keep any kind of cleaning supplies or anything that they may need immediately accessible. When we talk about label everything, make sure that it has their name, their room number, and their building included on everything. It should be packed in a box, a bag, a suitcase, not just left or thrown into the back of the car, but it does need to be in some sort of container. We're going to have our moving guide that will be published in the next couple of weeks, and that is kind of the complete compendium as to what to expect for move-in, kind of the A to Z as to what that process looks like. We do have our move crew. So our move crew is compiled of upper class student volunteers who get to move in early for the opportunity to move in students, to welcome our new students to campus and help move them into their room. We also hire some professional movers in order to help supplement that as well and help carry some of those heavier items up to the residence hall room. We want to make sure that our students are open to new experiences. We know that for many students, their roommate may be someone who comes from a very different background, has had different life experiences from your student. So making sure they're open to those new experiences. Hopefully your student has already been able to connect with their roommate and talk about things to bring, not to bring, and kind of get to know them a little bit before move-in day. One thing to note is that you're not alone and your student isn't alone. We have, during the move-in day, our professional staff will be all around campus in the residence halls, helping to welcome our students and make sure that everything is going as smooth as possible. Professional staff will be in a gray or the green polo, and our students will be in a student staff shirt, so they're easily identifiable when you're walking around. If you don't happen to find one, we have desks and we have individuals standing outside who can also help to track down a staff member for you. We want to make sure that students are reading their emails and their newsletters. We already have started sending out important move-in information. So making sure that they are checking those emails, they're looking at those newsletters, so they're up to date on all of the information. And it's important that they keep that practice up throughout the year, because we do send out information about housing deadlines, checkout dates, check-in dates, everything throughout the entire year. So making sure your student is checking their emails and reading their newsletters. So now we'll talk about what to expect during move-in. Our move-in does occur primarily over the course of 4 days. We do have about 1,000 to 1,200 students moving in each of those days. So like I said, it can get a little busy around campus. New and incoming first-year students is based on building and floor assignment, and the upper class students will actually have a new self-check-in process for this upcoming year. So for our first-year students, their move-in day is going to be August 21st and 22nd, with check-in beginning at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and they'll be checking in over at the Global Center. Students can check their housing email or their housing application to ensure they have the right schedule for their move-in. It isn't necessarily on the application, but it is on our website. We have a handy chart, and I know we've got a little bit later in the presentation that outlines the building and the floors for when they will be moving into the residence halls. So as noted, they check in on the 21st, 22nd, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. All of our new students will head over to the Angel Cabrera Global Center, what we call ACGC, before proceeding to their unloading zone. So as part of that check-in process, and this sign that you can see here, we will have available this year for move-in. Our students will enter through one entrance of the Angel Cabrera Global Center, while parents will go in through the main entrance into the lobby. So parents do not actually go into the check-in area. They're in the nice air-conditioned lobby waiting for their student to finish up the check-in process, and then we'll be able to meet you over in that lobby. As part of that check-in process, we get them checked into their room. We get their access onto their Mason ID. They will receive a t-shirt. We have a map, and they have parking passes. Make sure your student knows how many cars they have with them and how many parking passes that they will need for part of that unloading process. It's funny because students will just stand there and be like, I think I have 2. Oh, wait, no, 4 cars. So make sure they know how many parking passes they do need as part of that process. First-year students should make every effort possible to move in on their scheduled day and times. As noted, we stagger the buildings and locations for each of the move-in times in order to really maximize flow of traffic, bins, and that sort of thing along the way. Like I said, we're going to have a free Mason shirt, the first one your students will be receiving, first of many that they will get whenever they do the check-in process. And then parents, there's like a bathroom in the lobby area. There's going to be some seating. Our family programs, individuals will be over there as well to help greet you and help you feel welcome while you're waiting for your student through the check-in process. As noted, this is the fall move-in schedule. If you would like to take a picture of the screen, you are more than welcome to. But this is also on our website, and students have received this information as well so that they're aware as to when they will be needing to move in. If your student cannot make their time, they are welcome to move in after their assigned date, but they cannot move in earlier than their assigned date. This kind of helps spread out the traffic a little bit along the way. If your student isn't moving in on the 21st and the 22nd, and they're moving in like on the 23rd, 24th, or 25th, we don't have any moving assistance available then. We only having the moving assistance available on the 21st and 22nd. After those dates, only the green bins are available to move in. So as noted, students who cannot make their original time, welcome to come a little bit later in the day. However, we do have a lot of fun Welcome to Mason events that are planned. So we want to make sure that your students are making the most of it. This is why we really encourage them to stick with their move-in plan and make sure that they're arriving on time. If your student is going to be arriving after, let's say 4 p.m., like there's an accident, traffic happens, flights get in late, whatever the case may be, don't worry, they're not going to have to spend out overnight. They'll just need to go over to the Eisenhower or Piedmont desk in order to have access placed on their card, and then they'll be able to go to their residence hall room. If this is happening, we do recommend, and you know it's in advance, we do recommend letting roommates know, just so they're not startled when somebody tries keying into their room, particularly if they're on a flight that's getting on like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., or something along those lines. So we do recommend that as part of the communication process with the with any roommates that they may have. If we have any upper level students, and for transfer students, they are welcome to move in either with our new students on the 21st, 22nd, or they can choose to move in the 23rd, 24th, 25th. That is completely up to them. We know that some of those transfer students do want to attend some of those Welcome to Mesa events, so we do allow them to move in on those new student days. So for our upper class students, similar process, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., August 23rd through 25th. The self-check-in process, students will be sent a link that they will go into our housing portal, select the day that they want to move in, and then on the day that they have selected, their Mason ID will be automatically activated, and they will be able to proceed straight to their room. They don't need to stop at the Global Center first. We will still have the same maps, some of the hang tags like the unloading passes. They'll still get a t-shirt. We've ordered some insomnia cookies for them to welcome them on campus, and we'll still have lunch available. So during the freshman move-in days, during new student and upper class move-in days, lunch is provided. So make sure that you go by Southside or Ike's between 11 a.m. 2 p.m. and join us for lunch, completely free. And enjoy your lunchtime with your student. And then whenever they return to the residence halls, complete the unloading process and unpacking. So as noted, after you go over to your unloading zone, so after you've gone to Global Center, you've checked in, student has gone over to the residence hall, everything has been unloaded. After all of that has been done, which takes all of 15 minutes, the students will then somebody will then need to move the cars all over to the lots J and K to allow other students to move in. So it is literally just an unloading area. So lots J and K are the same lots that are near the Global Center. So they'll look familiar to you. You kind of know the way over there. And then we will have shuttles that will transport you back to the area where your student lives. So if your student lives over in the Rappahannock area, like University Commons, Commonwealth, or Dominion, they'll be able to take a shuttle over to near the Rappahannock deck and get off and go back over to the residence hall there. If they're going to be living over in President's Park, then the shuttle will let them off near Ike's and they'll be able to go into that area as well. Any cars left in unloading zones past the assigned time, so pretty much like 4 or 5 o'clock, and or overnight, risk having cars ticketed and or towed. So we do strongly recommend moving cars as soon as you can outside of those zones to prevent any issues like that. Plus, it allows us to keep the flow of traffic going and allow other individuals to come in and park and have the same unloading experience that you may have just had. Once students have finished unloading, once you go back to those shuttles will be running until about 4:30 in the afternoon. So after you finish unloading and you move the car, if you need to go back, we know that sometimes people need to go to Target, they need to go to Walmart because it's nearly impossible to get everything in one trip. What we strongly recommend is unless there's something super heavy, so like if you went and bought a micro fridge, we're not expecting you to tote it from lot J and K over to the residence halls. However, if you just picked up a few bags, things along those lines, and you can park in J and K and take that shuttle right back to the residence hall. So you can take that back and forth over to the parking lot and back throughout the day. And as noted, we do provide meals at Ike's or Southside on the dining hall, both for our upper class move-in days and for our freshman move-in days. Move crew. So like I said, we do have our upper class move crew volunteers that are moving in early to help students complete the move-in process. We also have professional movers that help with this as well. So one of the reasons why we said have everything labeled is because whenever you pull in and you park for unloading, like I said, it takes 15 minutes, which may seem very hard to believe, but they will come up to your car if you wish to use the service. If you don't want to have them move you in, you are welcome to just say, hey, I'm good, I got it on my own, and our team will go help another student. But if you choose to use them, they will pull everything out of the car. And I mean, everything comes out of the car. So if you have anything in the back you don't want to be taken with your students' belongings, make sure you leave that at home so that all of your students' belongings come out. They would be placed into a green bin and it will be pushed up to the residence hall. The student should go with the moving volunteers to their room because particularly like our professional movers are not necessarily familiar with some of the rooms and buildings are, and we don't necessarily want anything to get lost along the way. So make sure your student is walking with the volunteer to their room and getting that moved in, which means that any other supporters, family members, siblings, etc., are then moving the car over into their long-term parking. We're actually going to have green bins available over in the Rappahannock deck on the first ground. President's Park, it's going to be closer to Eisenhower, located through there for the freshman move-in days. For our upper class move-in days, there's a few other locations. We usually have them near Liberty Square, Potomac Heights, the Global Center, and then the Rappahannock deck again for our upper class move-in days. Packing lists. So as everybody has probably already started shopping, here's some important information for packing. We do have a list of things to bring. We strongly recommend looking that over before coming to campus and making sure that you aren't inadvertently bringing something that a student can't have in the residence halls. We're updating our resident student handbook at the moment. That should be up again around next couple of weeks or so. However, that what to bring list generally doesn't change too much. So we do recommend looking that over, making sure that students aren't bringing any explosives, any weapons, any multi-plug adapters. That's a popular one. No candles allowed. Those sort of things, making sure that they are bringing things that they should bring and things not to bring. One important thing to note is that if your student is going to be in a suite style residence hall, so if they've been assigned to Commonwealth or Dominion, they're responsible for cleaning their bathroom. So you're going to really want to bring bathroom cleaning supplies. Clorox wipes, those sort of things for those bathrooms. If your student is in a traditional residence hall, so University Commons, President's Park, Taylor Hall, those bathrooms will be cleaned for them. So they don't necessarily need to worry about bringing toilet paper and cleaning supplies for the bathroom. So making sure that you're kind of keeping track of that. Some students choose to bring their own shower curtain, like a liner or something along those lines, when they're moving into those bathrooms as well. And we recommend when they're talking to their roommates, talk about who's purchasing toilet paper. If they're in a traditional style room, a lot of those bigger items like, you know, the fridges, the microwaves, who is going to bring what, because those rooms can get very full very fast. As noted, here's a list of the things not to bring. We don't allow any pets except fish. We don't allow like the spider lamps, the ones that have like the multi-heads and that sort of thing. Electric space heaters, those aren't allowed either. Any electric appliance with an exposed heating element, my general rule is if you can see it turn red or you wave your hand over it and it feels hot, that means it has an exposed heating element. Those are not allowed in the in the residence halls unless the student has a kitchen in their room, which would be our apartment style. Those sort of things, like I said, we have the entire list available on our website. If your student is going to be bringing any curtains, tapestries, that sort of thing, things that hang on the walls, we do have fireproofing available on move-in day. We work closely with our EHS team, and they will have some tables set up for fireproofing so that they are able to get their curtains fireproofed and they won't risk any violations throughout the academic year. If your student wishes to raise their beds, so the beds can be raised and lowered, not lofted, but raised and lowered on their own. They can be raised up to a height of about 3 feet. And most students will put like their micro fridge under there. They get like the Rubbermaid drawers and that sort of thing to put under there. If you have trouble getting that adjusted to the height your student wants, then we do have our facilities team on site as well. Your student just comes up to the table, gives a room number, and we have a team who will be coming around to the rooms and helping to adjust those because A, the beds are heavy, and B, it can be a little tricky to get them unstuck when trying to adjust their heights. So how can you make things go by smoother? If you live far away from Mason, consider travel the day before move-in and staying overnight at a local hotel or rental. I went to college about 12 hours away from home. So my parents and I, we actually drove in the day before, stayed at a hotel, and then we're there at the residence hall first thing in the morning to complete move-in. So if you're worried about being rushed or being late, that is an option that you have. Make sure your student has a packing list and make sure everything is labeled with their name and assigned room number. Remember that they are able to buy things once they get to school, so they don't have to worry about packing everything. They can also bring things when they visit campus for Family Weekend in October, and Family Weekend is a really fun event. Highly recommend going to it. There's Target nearby, there's Walmart nearby. Students can have Amazon packages delivered. So we usually recommend bringing the minimum, like the things your student knows that they're going to need during move-in, and then maybe going out and purchasing anything that they think of later on throughout the day or shipping it to them. This helps to prevent anything having to be returned, worrying about if you have a receipt or not, carrying it to the residence hall and then carrying back to the residence hall, those sort of things. So kind of be strategic about how you're going to be doing that. Make sure students report any room damages on move-in day. As noted, we have our facilities team running around. The rooms are checked in advance, but sometimes things like a light may go out in between whenever our staff check it and whenever a student actually moves in. So we do have facilities teams on site if there is something wrong with the room and that you need assistance with that on the day. And make sure you're letting your student take the lead in dealing with issues and questions. One of the other recommendations that we make is have a talk with your student in advance about who is going to be in the room while unpacking and getting everything unloaded. Because keeping in mind that if you're in the room with your student, any parents and supporters are in the room with the student, and their roommate is also there with their parents and supporters, those rooms get very full very fast. So making sure that they may be talking to their roommate about when they're going to be arriving on campus and thinking about who's going to be in the room with the student in the room while they are getting it set up. And maybe send other supporters around campus to walk around. Like if there's something needed from the store, go ahead and send them to the store, something along those lines, just to really maximize the amount of people, the amount of space available within the room during the unloading process. And as noted, we do constantly update our move-in page, so making sure you're checking that out. We have a number of resources that are available as well. And then if you have any questions and want to chat with other family members, you can also check out the Mason Family Connection. I know Housing and Residence Life, we usually post important things on there like move-ins, the move-outs, any like the upcoming deadlines for housing applications and those sort of things along the way. And I think we're going to go on into Q&A.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Erin, for your presentation. So
Mhm.
we, at this time, are going to open up for some questions. So if you have a question that you would like to ask, you can put it in the Q&A feature. It's most likely at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then Erin, I have a few questions we've already gotten for you. So we're going to jump right into those if that's all right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the first question that we have is how can they read their housing assignment email? So how are they able to read if they're receiving those 4 numbers? What do those numbers mean and how can they read that?
Yeah, so whenever students receive their housing information, there was probably like a building name or a building code. So the building codes is like an abbreviation of the building. So Commonwealth is CO, Dominion is DO, Jefferson is JE, Monroe is MO, those sort of things. So it's like the building abbreviation and then it's their actual room assignment. So chances are it might have read like something like Monroe 304 or MO 304. So that would mean that they are living in 304 in Monroe Hall. And so students can actually go in, we have 3D floor plans of all of our first year residence halls, and they can go in and kind of do a 3D floor plan if they want to see what a typical room would look like in the residence hall and how it will actually be set up when they arrive on campus for move-in day. If your student has questions, if they have an assignment, if they're not sure that they have a housing assignment, they can log into the housing portal and it's actually listed there as well, along with any roommate information.
Awesome, thank you. All right, our next question is there going to be parking available at the ACGC on the day of move-in?
Oh yes, 2 large parking lots, lots J and K. They're like some of the larger parking lots that we have on the campus. And so whenever you pull into the Global Center, there's going to be GMUPD that help to direct traffic to Patriot Circle. And then you actually pull into the parking lot from Patriot Circle. Lot J, I believe, is the parking lot that's right out front, and Lot K is connected to it. And there's a walkway between those 2 parking lots. So they're commuter style parking lots, so they are fairly large. The shuttle stop for the Global Center will actually be in Lot K, but there is plenty of parking that is available out in front. If you happen to bring a U-Haul or a larger vehicle, it's an open air lot, so you don't have to worry about fitting into the parking lots. The Rappahannock deck, if you are bringing a vehicle or you have like one of those shells that you put on top to hold things, or you're bringing a U-Haul, then chances are you'll be directed over to the Merton Hall lot for unloading within that area. But over in President's Park, it's open air, so you don't have to worry about being too tall to hit anything.
Awesome. And then for transfer students who are transferring into the university, how is their move-in process differing from the first year move-in, or how are they receiving the same things that first year move-in is receiving, or just are there any differences that need to be highlighted again, maybe on those processes?
There's not really a difference between, the biggest difference between the two processes is for our first year students, they check in over at the Global Center and then they go to their unloading zone, and we have moving assistance available on the 21st and 22nd. So if you're a transfer student and you want to take advantage of that, we strongly recommend moving in on 21st and 22nd. The 23rd through the 25th don't have any moving assistance available other than like what you can carry in and push in a green bin with a dolly and those sort of things along the way. So that is the biggest difference between the 2 days, is that moving assistance is available for the first year students and for those moving in 21st, 22nd, and it's not available on the 23rd and 25th. Generally, because our upper class students tend to move in themselves or they have friends helping them to move in, so we don't necessarily offer it on those days.
Awesome, thank you. And then our next question was actually about parking. So they're asking if on move-in day, they're able to be, if they're purchasing a parking pass, if they're able to utilize their parking pass straight from move-in day, or if there's any processes ahead of that time where if there's a start date that's after move-in for those parking passes.
So the students can, the way the parking will work during move-in is it's a little different from the academic year. Because we have to have lots available during move-in, like if your student has a Lot R parking pass, for example, which is Potomac Liberty Square, they're not really able to park in Lot R during the major move-in days of the 21st through the 25th because we're using those lots for unloading. So those students will be temporarily directed over to Lot C or J and K for that period. However, during the academic year, then they will definitely need to be parking into Lot R. We will have several parking emails. I just met with Parking and Transportation today. So they'll receive several information emails about where to park during move-in and when they'll be able to utilize their regular parking pass throughout the academic year. If your student has a Rappahannock parking deck pass, then they can actually park up on levels 3 and 4 because we only use levels 1 and 2. So Rappahannock deck, they're able to park a little bit higher up with their parking pass beginning during move-in. Lot I, which is out in front of White Top Rogers, that one is available for move-in, and townhouses, they'll actually just park right in front of their townhouses as well. For President's Park, it's a little bit different because you'll come in and you actually park along the fire lanes for unloading, and that doesn't have a parking pass associated with it. That's why we issue unloading passes for all of these. And students should have a permanent parking pass. And after basically Saturday the 24th, they can start migrating back to where they'll normally be parking during the academic year.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question is about mailing addresses. So for students who will be living on campus, when can they expect to be getting their mailing address? How does the mail system work for them?
So I think we sent them information about that, but they can register for a mailbox on campus. And the Hub website, which oversees the mail on campus, because their mailboxes aren't actually in the residence halls, it's in the Hub. They can fill out a form to get a mailbox, and then they'll be able to get all their information, and the address is listed on the Hub website. So we recommend going there and looking at to what the address will be, and it will actually list it on there.
Awesome. So if a student or family has chosen to rent one of the fridge microwaves for their room, how does this process work for those? Are they scheduled to be delivered? Are they in the rooms when they move in? How does that work for?
Yeah, so if your student reserved it through, I think it's myfridgerental.com, the one that we work with through Housing and Residence Life, it will actually be in place whenever your student arrives. So it should be plugged in, should be cold, should be ready to use for move-in day. If the student has any issues, then they can reach out directly to if for whatever reason it stops working between when the company installed it and whenever your student arrives, then they receive an email with information on who they can contact in order to get that issue resolved.
Awesome. All right, and then we had a question about electronics. So for students who are living in residence halls and are concerned about the safety of their electronics or anything, how do you recommend students can secure their electronic devices from theft or having any issues with them?
So I know that JMUPD offers a program where students can register some of the electronics with them. And so that will help with tracking of like SKU numbers. So if somebody tries to resell it for money or something along those lines. So we recommend checking into the safety protocols that JMUPD offers. Some of the more basic things is making sure that students don't leave their room propped, that they don't give their Mason ID for anybody to access their room, making sure that their roommate is keeping the door closed, kind of utilize common sense whenever it comes to keeping the room safe, locked, and not letting anybody into the room that they don't know, giving access to anyone who doesn't live in that space, and that sort of thing. Some of the other things, I know some students will sometimes get like a small locker or something like that if they want to keep their electronics in there. But really it's just kind of up to the student and depending on what level of security that they want to feel when it comes to their personal electronics. For the winter breaks, the residence halls closed. Students do not need to move out. They just need to take with them everything that they need from winter break. And we generally do recommend taking home any electronics home with them, not necessarily from a safety perspective, but in the event that like there's a facilities issue in the residence hall or something along those lines, we do recommend usually taking some of those more expensive electronics home with them throughout that winter break period in case they want to access them while they're away. Otherwise, like I said, some will get like a small foot locker or something along those lines that they'll put electronics in and lock it up.
Awesome. All right, our next question is about fireproofing. So if a student were planning on fireproofing ahead of coming to campus, is this allowed? Or does GMU prefer for students to have it done at their move-in process?
Yeah, it's preferred to do it as part of the move-in process because after they fireproof it, they tag it and then they log the tag to show that yes, it has been fireproofed. So our EHS table will have some of the EHS individuals there. So if your student even brings something they're not sure that they're supposed to have, like if they're like, I don't know if this is one of the things that's allowed or not allowed, they can bring it up to the table, show the staff, and they'll be able to say yes or no. But when it comes to the fireproofing, it only takes about maybe 10 minutes to get it fireproofed, and then they leave it out to dry, gets tagged and logged, and the student can then take it up to their room and hang it.
Sounds great. All right. So for students who have received their housing assignment already and they're looking to possibly request to change their room or building, how do you suggest going about changing that? Or if they're unsure about switching it, how should they go about that process?
Yeah, so right now the room swap process has closed for the summer. So where your student is so assigned is where they're going to be living whenever they arrive on move-in day. We do, however, have a room change process that opens a couple of weeks after the start of the semester. We have to wait until after the drop add period for the university. We kind of do a census in the residence halls, make sure we know who is here, who is not here, so that we then know what spaces we then have available for room change. So that does happen a couple of weeks after the semester. However, prior to that, doing that, we strongly recommend that students get to know their roommate. They have that open communication. They talk about when guests can be in the room, when they want lights off, and those sort of things. And part of it is understanding that this can be nerve-wracking for all students. So if a student is like, my roommate doesn't seem like they're listening to me, chances are their roommate may be just as nervous about meeting your student as your student is about meeting them. So we strongly recommend having those conversations in advance, really trying to kind of keep that open mind, getting to know them, not necessarily just judge on like the small little Instagram picture that they might be able to see, but really going to get to know them. But like I said, we do have a process in place to help with that room change. We also have our professional staff and our RAs on hand who can help facilitate conversations if your student feels like their roommate isn't really listening to them.
Awesome, thank you. And then sticking on that topic of roommates, once a roommate is assigned, how are they able to contact each other?
So when they log into the housing portal, they'll see their roommate's name, and it's almost like if they're sending them a direct message through Instagram, they click on the name and then they're able to message them through the system. So that's usually the best way that we recommend. I know that some have been able to find like on Instagram or something like that to be able to connect with their roommate as well if it doesn't look like the messaging through the system is working.
Awesome. And then, sorry, for when students move into their room, what comes furnished already in the room already? And what do you recommend maybe students purchase if they want to have it in those spaces?
So the rooms come with a twin extra long bed, like I said, that can be raised or lowered depending on the height that your student prefers. If they want to keep it at a one of the highest heights, but they also bring like the risers that are non-electric that give them like a few extra inches, One thing that we recommend is bringing a footstool because you basically have to then pole vault on top of the bed because it is so high. So making sure that the bed height is taken into consideration as part of that process. So the rooms come with the bed, it comes with a mattress, strongly recommended mattress topper of about 3 inches because the mattresses are plastic and they're not quite that comfortable alone. So we strongly recommend bringing some sort of a mattress pad to go on top of that. It also comes with a desk and a chair and a chest of drawers. If your student is going to be in President's Park, they're going to get a wardrobe, which will allow them to hang things up. And then it has drawers underneath it. If they're going to be in Dominion, there's like a stack of shelves, and then there's like a small hanging space as well. And I think University Commons is either wardrobe or closet. I want to say it's wardrobe over in University Commons. So those are if they want to see exactly what furniture, they can do that 3D floor plan. And those show exactly what the rooms, how they will be set up for move-in day. So that's the best way to kind of look at that. Some of the more common things that our students will bring for move-in, we don't usually recommend bringing any extra furniture, maybe like a collapsible chair, like a camping chair or something like that, so that if they have friends over, they have someplace to sit, but the chair can easily be stored. I know that some students prefer to bring a hutch. We actually don't include hutches in the residence halls because students weren't really using them. So students can purchase a hutch and bring one if they feel like that's something that they want. Some students bring TVs. Most of them will you just watch like Netflix and that sort of thing on their computers or their iPads. We do recommend that if your student is like a gamer or they want to have a stronger Wi-Fi Ethernet, we do recommend bringing like the Ethernet cord because it has a better connection than the Wi-Fi. So if your student is going to have like Xbox, PlayStation, anything along those lines, then they should be bringing that cord in order to hardwire in to the Ethernet and make sure that that works. So I would probably just encourage your student to think about how they can make that space their own and what things they need in order to feel comfortable for the upcoming academic year.
Awesome. Sticking on that subject of rooms and things that come with it, will students need to purchase curtains or do the rooms already have blinds in them?
So the rooms do have blinds, and I apologize, my dog is drinking water next to me. So the curtains do have blinds, but they do not have curtains. So students do need to bring their own curtains. Sometimes they'll bring the tension rods. I know that when I lived in the residence halls, I used like the 3M hooks and put them up next to the window, and then I put like the rod on top of it and then hung the curtains on the rod because it was a little bit sturdier than just a tension rod. Some students will choose to bring like the blackout curtains if they are sensitive to light, want to make the room darker. So that is some of the options along the way for that. The only thing is that blackout curtains can be kind of heavy. So making sure you have a rod that can help to support that.
Awesome. All right, and then we're going to shift a little bit to talk about laundry. So how does the process of laundry work in the residence halls for students? And then also, does it cost them anything to do their laundry?
So the good news is that laundry is included with their housing. So if your student tries to hit you up for money, they don't need it for the laundry. They're going to have, we use Speed Queen app for the laundry. So your student will download the Speed Queen app onto their phone, and that is how they're able to do laundry. They're able to see when machines are available and when a machine is finished with their clothes in it. So they just go into the laundry room, they select the machine, the money is automatically deducted from their account. It's like almost Monopoly money. We give students a certain amount of money throughout the year. If they exceed that amount, they just talk with their community director about why they exceeded it, and then they're granted more in order to be able to do their laundry. We just want to make sure that they're doing their laundry, not like laundry for friends off campus. And that sort of thing. And so it is included. Speed Queen app is what they will need in order to do laundry, and they'll be able to access the system that way and really kind of track where the laundry is. We do recommend that students be on time for removing their laundry because students can get kind of savage after a while, and they'll just remove the laundry, even if it's dripping wet, and put it somewhere else. So your student would then have to redo their laundry. So we do strongly recommend keeping an eye and being ready to remove the laundry and transfer it over whenever it is done.
And then we're going to shift back a little bit to talk about the roommates again. So we had a question about if a student has reached out to their roommate, the one that they've been matched with, but they haven't received a response from that person, how can they go about getting in contact with them or ensuring that they're able to meet with that roommate beforehand?
So like I said, either looking on some of the social media sites to see if their roommate is on there, trying to message them through the system are the best ways. But if their roommate isn't responding, don't panic. It's happened before. It's not like they're rejecting your student or anything like that. But mainly what it is that a lot of students tune in at different times for the academic year. So because we haven't hit August yet, a lot of students are like, you know what, I got time. I'm not worried about it yet. I'll check in about it later on. So I would just encourage them to keep contacting them and see if they ever do get a hold of them before move-in. And if they don't get a hold of them before move-in, again, it's not the end of the world. Your student, we just strongly recommend hanging on to any receipts so that if you both show up with fridges and microwaves and decide to only keep one, then it can easily be returned, and that sort of thing. So if your student hasn't been able to get a hold of their roommate, it's not the end of the world. There will be plenty of time for them to be able to catch up and get to know each other after move-in.
Awesome. Sounds great. And then for those students who are going to be living in communal style living spaces, are there communal kitchens or fridges for them to utilize, or is it recommended that they bring their own or rent a mini fridge?
A lot of students will have their own mini fridge in their room just so they can keep whatever snacks and drinks they want closer by. For the community areas, like a Taylor Hall has a community kitchen, Hanover Hall has a community kitchen. However, not a lot of students will tend to keep like their own food in there. They'll just carry it back and forth to the residence halls. This prevents like it being used up by other students or something going missing along the way. If your student plans to be cooking in the communal kitchens a lot, sometimes parents will purchase like inexpensive items like pots and pans or something like that that they can easily use and take back and forth. The only thing you would need to keep an eye on is the knife policy and sharp objects, because they can't have a knife if like a kitchen knife if they're in a space that doesn't have an apartment. So that is one thing to kind of keep in mind. So maybe buying things that are pre-cut, or something like that if they do plan to do some cooking, or keeping the objects within the kitchen area itself.
It's good to know. Is there anywhere for those who are moving in where they can find the dimensions of their rooms or the dimensions of the windows?
I believe that we have, we don't usually do the dimensions of the rooms because there's always variance by a few inches. When it comes to the spaces, some of them were kind of constructed so they're not all equal in size. However, the window width can be looked up on those 3D floor plans. 3D floor plans will allow you to do a measurement of everything. And so there's a little measurement tool down in the left corner. You can just hold it up like one corner of the window measured across, and it's pretty accurate in terms of the window width. So that information is available on the website. You could potentially measure the width of the room. However, because of how the 3D floor plans, it's a larger area. So the measurements may not be quite as accurate when it comes to measuring the width and the depth of the room itself.
Awesome, thank you. And then a question about the furniture in the room. So if a student was wanting to bring their own desk chair or their own desk, is that an option that's available to them, or are they required to use the furniture that's already provided in the space?
So students are welcome to bring their own furniture, but they have to store the existing furniture in the room, which eats up space. So that's why we just recommend sticking with what we have within the rooms. However, we do know that some students, like if they're gamers, there's like a specific chair type that they're more comfortable in. They then just need to figure out where they're going to be sticking their desk chair throughout the year. A lot of times they'll like tuck it underneath their bed or something like that. But that is a consideration that they would need to figure out, is where they're going to put the existing furniture, because we don't have anywhere to store it on campus. And if it's not there at the end of the year, then they'll get charged for it.
Awesome. And then a question a little bit about the IDs and entering the space. So if a student is with the university shifting over to the mobile ID and they're wanting to request a physical ID, does this have the same capabilities as the mobile ID? And then how can they get access to their physical ID?
Yeah, so the two IDs are identical. The mobile ID is is stored like in their phone wallet, as where the physical ID is just literally like a regular ID card. And so they can go over to the Mason card office and they can get a physical one printed. However, if they have already activated the Mason mobile ID and then they choose to switch over to the card, I believe it's $25 cost. So just kind of have that, make sure your student is aware as to which one they want to use so that they're not getting charged for any replacement IDs, which is what it would be considered in that case. So the capabilities are the exact same between the two cards. Students are also able to use the Mason Mobile ID if they have like an Apple Watch or something along those lines. Whenever their card, if they happen to lose their Mason ID, so like if they lost their phone, they needed to get a new one, then access should automatically be up there. But if your student has trouble getting access, they can visit either the Eisenhower or the Piedmont desk and have that access added on. I believe the physical IDs, it doesn't automatically transfer over. So if they get a physical ID, they would need to visit one of the two desks in order to have access to their space restored. But like meal plan would automatically transfer over, just not room and building access.
That's good to know. All right, and then we had a question about air conditioning in the spaces. So is air conditioning available in all of the residence halls? Is it available in a select number and select spaces? Same with heating. Is it available in all the spaces or some of the spaces? What does that look like?
Yeah, so all of our spaces have heating and air conditioning. One thing to note though is that our buildings are two-pipe buildings, meaning that they can only be set to heat or set to cool. The students really don't have a lot of temperature climate control within their individual rooms. So we do recommend bringing a fan for that because in the winter, our buildings are designed to insulate and they insulate very well, so it can get warm. So we do recommend bringing a fan that they can easily set up in order to keep it cool. For other students, since space heaters are not allowed, they may choose to bring extra blankets or something along those lines if they get cold whenever the air conditioning is turned on. So all of our buildings are heated and air conditioning. However, there's not a lot of ability to control what the temperature is within each of the rooms. Taylor does have climate control within the rooms. However, the other residence halls do not. Other first-year residence halls.
Awesome. And then to shift a little bit back to the IDs and talking about those, if a student has an issue with their phone, saying that their phone dies or something happens to it and they left their phone in their room, how can they get access to go back into their room to get that ID? Or if they need to get an alternative ID for a short period of time, how does that process work?
Yeah, so your ID will actually work on your phone if your phone dies, I believe, for like 30 minutes to 1 hour, somewhere in there to still be able to read it and be able to be activated and they can get into their room that way. Our desks also have chargers that they can borrow for a short period of time to get just enough charge to get up to the room and then plug their phone in. If for some reason the student loses their ID, they lost their phone, whatever the case may be, then they can get a temporary ID issued at one of the desks, which will let them into their room, and they'll just need to return that temporary ID back to one of the desks whenever they are done using that. If they've lost their ID, then our recommendation is always to go over and get one replaced, so that should someone find their ID on campus and know where that student lives, to prevent anyone accessing their space that shouldn't be.
Awesome. And then sticking on that topic of IDs, are they able to have both forms of ID at the same time? Or are they able to select one or the other form?
It's one or the other. So if your student has a mobile ID, then that is their ID. If they have a physical ID, that is the only ID that they can have as well. They can't necessarily have both of them at the same time.
And then shifting a little bit to talk about check-in, specifically for transfer students or upperclassmen students. For the self-check-in process, when will that be available, or is it available now for students, or how would that process work for them?
We'll be sending out information about the self-check-in process probably later this week. The link where they can sign up for their move-in day will go live August 2nd, and they'll be able to fill that out anytime between August 2nd and the 19th. And information about the self-check-in process will be sent to the student's email address. We've already sent out some information. However, the additional information, including how they can sign up for their move-in day, will be sent out, like I said, later this week or early next week.
Thank you. And then for students who have windows in their spaces, how are these windows able to be opened? Are they able to create some air ventilation with those? Are there restrictions on opening the windows in the residence hall spaces? Or what does that look like for them?
Yeah, so the windows do open, however, they don't open very far. So when the rooms do open, and it's usually about 4 inches, maybe 5 inches at the most. So they aren't able to open very much. Whenever the windows are open, I know that students will sometimes open it, like let's say whenever it's hot in the building and cold outside. The only problem that can cause is mold in the room because you're introducing moisture into the environment from outside. So whenever cool air comes in, physics, cool air comes in and meets the warm air, moisture forms, and that can kind of help with mold growth within the residence halls. So students can open their windows. We just don't necessarily recommend doing so like overnight or for extended period times in order to prevent moisture from entering into the residence hall room and preventing that mold growth. However, they can, of course, open windows. I know that when I lived in one residence hall, I had a box fan that pointed out actually so that it would suck the air out of the room and push it outside. And that would kind of help the space cool down a little bit more as well.
Awesome. Thank you for all the questions you've answered so far. Keep putting questions in the Q&A if you have them, but we're also getting close to the 8 o'clock hour. So we're just going to accept a couple more questions moving into the end of our time together. And we do have another one for you, Erin. So we were wondering, what are the services that are going to be available for residential students as they're moving in? Are there any activities that are planned or anything for them to get engaged with other students? And how do those continue throughout the semester? What does that look like?
So every night of move-in, there's activities planned. So for the students who are moving in on the Wednesday night, there's an activity planned for those. There's another activity planned for Thursday night. And pretty much the first 5 to 6 weeks of their time at Mason will be jam-packed with Welcome to Mason events. So students can already they can look up those events online. There's a lot of the information about how to get involved with those events and that sort of thing that is available. I believe Mason 360 should have all of that information available for students to be able to look up and start planning what events that they want to go to. During the move-in day, we primarily don't have too many events during move-in because we want them to focus on getting to the residence hall, getting unloaded, getting moved in, and that sort of thing. And then once about 5 o'clock hits, they'll probably go to dinner with the other students on their floor, at which point in time, most parents do tend to leave campus. And then the student goes to whatever activities they have planned for the evening and for the rest of the weeks moving forward.
Awesome, thank you. And then our next question is for you, is that, do you have any advice on supporting students throughout their transition into the new process, into their new space, as a professional in the area?
Yeah, so for students, I probably recommend helping them find their routine. And that is going to be very different from when they're in high school. As I recently read, an 8 a.m. class in high school is very different from an 8 a.m. course in college. So making sure that they do find their routine. If they are used to working out, check out one of the rec centers. If they want to get involved, there's a variety of organizations, clubs, and events for them to be able to go to. So making sure that they have their routine, they know what they are going to be doing, and they also know where to go if they need help. Their RA is available on their floor if they do need assistance, or they just kind of need someone to help point how to do things along the way. If they're not sure what office to visit for assistance, or not sure how to have a conversation with their professor, or if they generally just feel overwhelmed when they first get their syllabi. Their RA is there to help them navigate that. And chances are there's going to be others on their floor that are going to be experiencing the exact same thing that your student is going through. So making sure that they are connecting, not just with their roommate, but with the others on their floor as well. We also strongly recommend students coming in with an idea of what they want their environment to feel like, their living environment to feel like. So if your student isn't comfortable with having guests after 10 p.m., encourage them to have that conversation in advance so that, if their roommate likes to have people over at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, your student is in an environment where they feel like they aren't able to sleep and able to relax. So help them have those conversations and encourage them to do so, because they'll need to be having those conversations sooner rather than later in order to really be able to fit in with their environment. Mason has a variety of resources available for students. So if your student begins to feel overwhelmed with classes, there's academic success coaches that can meet with them and help kind of navigate some things around. We have counseling and psychological services. We have a ton of things that are available to help our students adjust to life at Mason. And we know for some, it's going to be a rougher transition than others. And that's okay. Most of the students, all of our students, they generally do find their own way. It just kind of depends on recognizing that what they expected college to be isn't necessarily how it's going to be in life. So making sure that they're expected that they may have disappointments with classes. They may have disappointments with how, their roommate situation is going, and that's fine. Like I said, we do have the resources available to help them navigate that.
Awesome. And then we have one final question for you. So what would you say are the most important things for them to know about their students move-in? So maybe the one most important thing or a few most important things for them to
move-in?
know. Mhm.
Be patient. Lines happen. It may take a little bit to get up to their room. Particularly if they're in one of the higher-rise buildings like Commonwealth or Dominion, one of the buildings that has an elevator. If their roommate has a different idea of how they want their room to be set up. So basically we know that it's a high stress day and students have a high expectation for it. But helping them to manage those emotions and being patient when things may not necessarily go exactly as they have planned.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much today, Erin, for answering all these questions and the amazing presentation. We hope that it was informative for all the participants here today. With that, that is the end of our webinar and the question answering session. We want to thank everyone for coming and sticking with us and attending. But you can feel free to exit this room now from the leave function at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.